When you go to sell your house, you want to make sure that it's been maintained for like the time that you've owned it. You got to maintain it. You got to repair and fix it if there's something wrong with it, and you've got to update it. I mean, if you don't do those things, you can't expect to get top dollar for your property when it comes time to sell it. That's just the matter. That's just the reality of things. So when it comes to maintenance and repair, you got to observe. You got to go around outside your home. You got to look at things. You got to look at the soffits and fascia. You got to look at the roof. You got to look at the walls, the windows. See if things are leaking. See if you're getting water intrusion somewhere. See if you've got termites crawling up through the bottom of the foundation, around the edges of the foundation. Look at inside, underneath your sinks. Look under your sinks every once in a while. See if there's any water dripping from your drain lines or your faucets or any of those kinds of things, because sometimes those can happen over a slow period of time and cause major damage. And you're not even aware of it until it's too late. And you got to end up replacing a whole kitchen because of that. As you look around and you maintain your property, you want to make sure that you take notes on condition. And this, you don't have to do this every day, but maybe 3 or 4 times a year might be enough. So you go around, you look at your property, you say, well, that looks kind of funny. Maybe, the next time you come back, or observe it more frequently then if you find something that's of concern. And just take note of it and make sure that that particular item is not growing in its concern, something that needs to be taken care of. If you've got holes around your soffit and fascia, and that's the overhang of your roof that hangs out over the walls of your house. So here's your roof, here's your house, here's your walls, it comes down like this. This part right here is the soffit, and then on the front of that is the fascia. Sometimes you can have a hole in that, and you can get rodents in there, you can get bats in there. That's a pain. You don't want to get bats in your attic because there's all kinds of laws concerning the protection of bats. And so you never want to get to that point to begin with. Along with that, maintaining your property and observing things is to make sure that you don't have pests that are affecting your property, whether that be rodents, bats, squirrels, stuff like that, or what we call WDOs in the business. That's wood destroying organisms, and that would be termites, dry wood and subterranean, carpenter ants, those kind of things. You want to make sure that you maintain your property in the pest defense area too. It might be that you do it yourself, or you make sure you maintain a contract with a pest control professional that can do that for you and give you a guarantee or warranty in the process, so that if something does come up, then they will take care of that for you and it's covered under their warranty. Obviously, there's things on your home that need to be repaired from time to time or replaced. So you got to consider your mechanical systems, and that would be your HVAC system. That's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And that's the big one in Florida because everybody has to have an air conditioner. Now, by law, you don't have to have an air conditioner. By law, you have to, believe it or not, you have to have a heater, but you don't have to have an AC. Now, but that's one of the big ones. When you go to look at a home, the question is always, how old is the AC? How old is the roof? How old is the water heater? Has the wiring been replaced? Has the plumbing been replaced? Especially if you're talking about a home that's more than, say, 40 or 50 years old. Those kind of things would be a potential issue. You want to make sure that you update and maintain your appliances, because appliances wear out, they get to the point where they look dated. All these things will affect the value of your home, and also the feeling when someone comes into your home as to what those appliances look like. And does it look like the refrigerator is from 1975? Well, you probably want to get it out and get a new refrigerator and make sure they match, because that helps to add to the feeling that someone comes in when they're viewing your home, the feeling that they get of continuity and design, and just the feelings of comfort when you come into a kitchen that has all the same appliances and all the same cabinets, and the cabinets haven't been painted at some point by somebody's 5-year-old. You want to make sure that these things, they look nice when you come in, and you want to make sure that they either have a timeless trend or a timeless design. Natural stone and wood are generally pretty timeless, whereas when you get into kind of retro things like colored tile and Formica cabinets, those things they can be dated. They might be in style at one time or another, but generally if you see those things and they're not in style at the time, it's going to date the home, and people aren't going to want to give you a top dollar on the home. If you have an irrigation system, which is a good idea, if you have a nice lawn and you're maintaining your property on the outside, your curb appeal, an irrigation system is a great way to do that, and it's a great way to keep your plants and your lawn looking healthy. But if you have an irrigation system, make sure that it's something that someone can figure out. Make sure it's something that where the valves that control the irrigation system and the timers that control the irrigation system, make sure that somebody can find those things. Because I've worked on plenty of properties where I go around and somebody says, can you figure out our irrigation system for us? And I can't even find the valves. They're hidden under 10 years of grass, for one thing, and it's impossible. So it's a good idea if you have one installed, or if you come along and there's one that's there and you can figure it out, maybe draw up some kind of schematic that you can put up over the timer in the garage or wherever your timer's at for your irrigation system, so that someone knows how to come along and repair and maintain that system at some point. And you don't have to start from square one and put a whole new irrigation system in because somebody can't figure out where everything's at. So if you live on a waterfront property, one of the big items in a waterfront property is the seawall and dock. But seawall is going to be more important. Seawall is the killer of all kinds of deals, because these seawalls, they typically, if they're put in 40, 50 years ago, the technology that they were using back then is not quite as good as what they have now. So you want to make sure that that seawall is stable, that it's secure, that it's structurally sound. Now, those things are kind of subjective, and generally what you're going to want to do when you're looking at a property that's waterfront that has a seawall, you want to make sure that you get that inspected, so that when someone comes out and looks at it, they say, yes, this seawall is good, it's got another few years, or you need to attend to this seawall, whether it be repair or replace. But once again, it's still up to you, but at the same time, it is something that you want to consider. And it's a very expensive fix, depending on how much seawall you have. The longer the seawall, it's just simple math, the more expensive it's going to be to replace it or fix it. So those are things there. Another thing would be docks and boat lifts on waterfront property. You want to make sure that those things are in good condition so that they don't need to be rebuilt. If they are not in good condition, then the seller cannot expect to get full price for their property. And all these items apply to that. So let's see, what's some other things we got here? Roofs obviously are a big one. When someone's considering purchasing your property, they're going to say, how old is the roof? And they're going to want to know what kind of condition the roof is. If you have had roof leaks, disclose that. If they have been fixed, you have to disclose that. It's in your best interest, so that when the buyer comes along to put an offer in on your property, they know exactly what they're dealing with. Not only that, but when you disclose the things that are wrong with your property, the buyer is more likely to trust you on the other things that you say. If on the other hand, you've had a roof leak, and you know once the inspection comes along, and they figure out you've had a roof leak, and you didn't say anything about it in your property disclosures, and all of a sudden they found out, and then you're like, oh yeah, well we had that fixed. Well, you've damaged your credibility a little bit. So now that the buyer may not potentially believe other things that you've told them about the property. So it's a good idea to disclose things on your property disclosure when you get ready to sell. But anyway, let me get back to the point here. So the next thing would be plumbing and electrical. On older homes, oftentimes you'll have issues with plumbing. There are some homes that have polybutylene plumbing. You're going to have a difficult time closing a deal on a property with polybutylene plumbing. It's a technology that was used for a little while back in the 70s, I believe, and they had huge fails on this stuff, and it's not something that most insurance companies or mortgage companies want to deal with. So you want to make sure that you don't have that. Another thing during that time was aluminum wiring. Now you can have aluminum wiring from your service panel to your main panel. That is acceptable and okay. But the wiring in your walls cannot be aluminum. If it is, you have to do a rewire on the house. If your plumbing is old, like cast iron, well not cast iron, but galvanized for your supplies, or that polybutylene plumbing, you're going to have the home repiped. If it hasn't already been done, that's going to be an expense the new buyer is going to incur after they purchase the home. And the last thing would be curb appeal. That's probably one of the most important things when it comes to your first impressions you get when you come to a home. If you've got nice lawn, nice landscaping, those kind of things can oftentimes they can overcome even a bad location or a less than desirable location when someone pulls up to the house and go, oh wow, this is really nice. I really like the looks of this, the presentation of this yard as you come and look at this home. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel invited. It makes me feel like I want to go in there and see what else is to come. So you want to make sure that you maintain the yard and you maintain your landscaping and your lawn, and make sure that you don't have a bunch of junk in your yard and things that could cause people to think, what's going on with this property? Because you have to remember that a lot of things in properties, they create a subconscious feeling when you go into a property. Someone may not completely know what it is they don't like about this property, but it may be that it's just a little bit of tweaking here or there. It can cause them to have a better impression of your property and be more likely to put an offer on your property that is more in line with what you're asking. So that is some good ways to preserve the value and increase the chances of you getting the full asking price for your property, especially if it's priced right. So I hope this helps. Have a good one.